History lingers on a bit too close for comfort next on Ben Kropp's Lure of the Pearl. 80 kilometers off the northwest coast lies a series of low-lying sandstone islands called the Montebellos. Most Australians have never heard of these islands, but for a few brief years in the 1950s, they were famous. In October 1952, Britain exploded its first nuclear device in the Montebellos. 4 years later, 2 more tests were carried out before the islands were again allowed to sink into obscurity.
This is where they detonated the first nuclear device in 1952. The tidal wave went right over the island.
Hugh Edwards, author and journalist, has been closely monitoring the ecological effects of the blasts among the islands. Hugh will act as guide for Ben and his crew.
That should be good. All right, well, what about we get going and go and have a look at this place?
The living termite mounds on Hermite Island are evidence of little damage to the environment right here. This was the site of the blockade from which the scientists set off the explosion.
Out across there is Tryall Island. That's the place where they had the nuclear tests in 1952 and 1956. And this is actually a pretty historic view because we're now in the building, the blockhouse, where the scientists watched the bomb in the safety of distance. And in fact, this is the very spot where Sir William Penny triggered the first bomb in 1952, which made Britain a member of the World Atom Bomb Club.
The first bomb was detonated in 1952 on an old ship in the lagoon off Tryall Island. The island was swept by a huge tidal wave caused by the explosion. The second bomb was detonated right on the island itself. As a precaution, Hugh takes a Geiger counter from here on in.
This is the blockhouse that was closest to the explosion and shows you what's likely to happen when you explode a nuclear device within half a mile of a building. It's absolutely destroyed it.
Certainly flattened this place, didn't it?
Yeah, up to the bits.
Was this the blast or the tidal wave, you reckon, that did all the damage?
Probably the blast, followed by the tidal wave. Getting a bit more of a reading here. It's still not a dangerous reading, it's a residual one. Years ago it would have been dangerous, but it's not nearly as strong as the readings that were found on the other islands from the dirtier bombs, the ones that were set off actually on the islands.
It's mostly in the metal, is it?
Mostly in the metal, yeah. You don't get much from the concrete.
Yeah, you can hear it die off, but you can still hear it coming through.
When you get to the metal, there's still a reading. That's not a dangerous reading. Well, we'll look at the ones a bit further inland, and they're further from the blast, and of course they won't have nearly as high a reading even as these. This took the first shock of the explosion in the ship.
We're fairly close, actually.
This is within half a mile.
Half a mile.
Yeah.
What's this, Hugh?
This is one of the parts of the ship, HMS Plym, that carried the atom bomb. And she was about a mile over that way. You can imagine the force necessary to blow this bit of steel a mile up in the air and down again. We'll go and look at some of the other bits.
We're going to have a look at one of these bigger bits.
Must have been a big shove this up. Well, this one's twisted.
Yeah, it's a bit more radioactive than the other stuff, too. It's getting quite a high reading.
Into the ship's hull, eh?
Yeah, solid iron. Yeah, listen to that.
Oh, that's high.
No, it's not really high. It's still on the very low scale, but it's a significant reading. There's still some residual radioactivity there. And that's from 1952. That's
It's not dangerous anymore, though, is it?
26 years. You wouldn't want to put it in your pocket, put it that way.
Like this old turtle stayed here too long.
No, I don't think that'd do anything. Well, it takes a couple of years. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. There's very high radiation levels in here. Listen to that. That's up on the very top scale.
That's probably, he's gained that laying here, though.
He's gained that laying here, yeah. There's also a lot of stuff in the ground underneath our feet, which is pretty hot. All right, we're coming right up to the very spot where they detonated the bomb. If you look at the ground, well, you'll see something that you'll never see anywhere else in Australia.
What's that?
There's not one single ant or insect on the ground.
You're right.
Completely dead.
Not a sign of anything.
The needle's coming up now.
It's getting hotter.
Hey,
It's a very high scale. Here it goes.
Ooh.
This spot here is the exact spot where the bomb was detonated.
Hey, that's getting up.
And these bits of metal are very, very high on the scale.
Isn't that a bit dangerous?
That is a bit dangerous. I think
we
that's
better
it.
get out of here.
Get
I'm
out of
not
here.
keen on it.
The ecological effects of the bomb can be seen everywhere on the island. This mangrove swamp once teemed with wildlife. Now, 26 years later, it's still as dead as the day of that searing blast. The third and final bomb was exploded on top of a 30-meter tower on Alpha Island, not far from Tryall. The Geiger counter will measure the residual radiation from the blast.
This is Alpha Island, and it's the ground 02 from the 1956 tests. This wire is in poor condition, as you can see, but it was erected in 1960 to keep people out then.
Does that mean it's safe now?
We're still getting fairly high radiation levels. This notice here says that in 74, the ground was still contaminated. We'll go in, but we'll be careful about it because we'll have to wash the instrument all the way. This is ground 02, and the bomb here was up on a tower, about 100 feet up in the air. This is the start of the edge of the perimeter of the bomb, and that bit of metal's pretty hot there. I think we'll go around that. Coming up onto the actual detonation point, it's a heavier bit of metal, and that's right off the scale. I think we'll dodge that one. Now, those are the tower supports there. But as you can see, this bit of bare ground is just about all that's left.
That one's hot too.
The whole area is very hot
Yeah,
here,
it's hot,
actually.
isn't it?
I think we'll keep moving through here. This is the last bit of one of the main supports. So that's it.
Hey, that goes right off the
Ooh-ah.
scale.
That's right off the scale, yeah. Okay, I think we better not stay here because it's just too high already.
Yeah, let's get
Stick
right
around.
out of this place.
It's a good idea to make sure that you really wash your boots and get rid of any metal fragments or dust and you might have picked up in that ground 0 area.
Right.
We'll put them back on again or leave them off? Now we've scrubbed them.
Might as well leave them off. I'm gonna go
We're
back
going
to
to
the
check them with the counter before we...
No, I wouldn't show on the counter. The main problem is metal fragments.
The bomb detonated on the HMS Plym gouged a 20-meter deep hole in the bottom of the lagoon. The once luxurious coral growth has gone, and only a few soft corals have regenerated. The lagoon is still devoid of fish, and Ben found it all rather depressing. "20 kilometers away from the test site off Lowenthal Island, Ben was glad to see the reef looking as beautiful as ever. Exquisite corals and abundant marine life show how it once was around Tryall. The stark reality of these terrifying weapons takes on more perspective. The devices exploded in the Montebellos were known as penny bombs. Compared with the awesome power of today's nuclear weapons, they must be considered as mere small change.